Welcome in to the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast. This is our first live-streamed episode. We're planning on doing a little bit more of this, but we thought today would be a good day to get it started. We're changing up our schedule a little bit. We've been dropping one Avs podcast a week. We're going to switch that up, and we're going to start doing 3 Avs podcasts a week. It's our most popular podcast, and it's honestly our favorite to make. So we're going to go ahead and do that. At least one of those weekly will be streamed. The other 2 will probably just record normally. But that's where we're at right now. But we got a lot to talk about. Before we get too deep into the Avs kind of stuff, there was some pretty big league news. Marshall and Zach, I know you were both working today, so I don't know if you saw it, but the New York Rangers have the first overall pick. Mm-hmm. Just immediate thoughts on that. What do you think? I mean, it's a big for them. What are your thoughts here?
The Lafreniere sweepstakes was it was pretty interesting to watch. I don't know if you guys saw all the stuff afterwards. You guys could see the Leafs ball right there, right before it was right underneath the Rangers ball. They're just getting boned left and right, and it's absolutely just great to see. But to move away from the Leafs, for the Rangers, obviously this is super good. You get to put Lafreniere next to a Hart Trophy candidate in Panarin. And it'll be exciting to see what he does there.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, even before this, the Rangers were one of the top probably 3 to 5 up-and-coming teams, especially with their goaltending situation, their wingers, their depth wingers, and even Adam Fox is someone that had an argument to be made to be like a Calder Trophy finalist. Their young talent right now is absolutely just super dynamic, especially if Capo Caco can get rolling. I mean, Zach pointed at it, like, it will be interesting to see if he gets paired up with Panarin right away or if they kind of like drop him down on the third, second line right away. But let him kind of build into his role. But this is really, really exciting for Rangers fans. I mean, their future is looking as bright as ever.
Yeah, I mean, this was already, when you're looking at Panarin and Kakko, you're looking at already kind of an elite pool of talent on the wing. And then you're just throwing in, like, probably the best wing prospect in the last 5 or 6 years at a minimum, So that's absolutely massive for them. I think they probably break it up somehow. They either put him next to Zibanejad or Panarin, but not both, and then put Kakko with the other, just so they can kind of roll out the top 2 lines. But I definitely think he plays in their top 6. I'm curious to see just how good he looks. I think there are going to be a lot of people complaining about this one, but as Avs fans in particular, this might be the best case scenario. He didn't go to Toronto, where, I guess we don't really care that much as Avs fans, whether it was Toronto or Pittsburgh or whatever, but he's in the East, and that's the big thing. He didn't end up in Edmonton, and he didn't end up in the Central, and basically we dodged that bullet, and I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, so I got a quick question about the draft, actually. So is it is it a lock that Lafreniere goes first, or is there a chance that he drops a little bit?
It's a lock.
It's a lock. Okay.
It's definitely a lock.
Barring something absolutely crazy, it's a lock.
Okay. I didn't know if it was that close or if it was more like Tyler Seguin, Taylor Hall territory.
No, I would say it's more of a lock this season than last year's Jack Hughes, Capo Caco situation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
At the very end of the season last year, there was some buzz that Capo Caco could end up going first, although the consensus was that Jack Hughes was the first overall prospect. I definitely think, though, that this year Lafreniere's head and shoulders, far and away, the consensus number 1 overall pick. So.
Yeah. This draft definitely starts at 2. But let's move into our main topic today, and let's talk a little bit about the series that we finally know what team we're playing. The Avs will get the Coyotes. Little unfortunate that we slid to the 2 seed, especially on an overtime game when we all know we can't win in 3-on-3 overtime. Luckily, that's done for this year. But we do have the Coyotes, and I will say I don't love this matchup. Of the 4 teams that came out of that play-in, none of them scare me. But if I had to pick the one I want to play the least, it would have been the Coyotes. I don't know how you guys feel about this. are you happy about the matchup just in general, or are you like kind of where I am, where like I'm not particularly worried about it, but it would have been my last choice.
Yeah, I guess I'll start here. I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Billy. I would rather have played Vancouver or Calgary or Chicago, but I'm still not necessarily worried about the Coyotes. The one factor that does kind of scare me a little bit is obviously Darcy Kemper.
Mm.
He's been absolutely stellar all year when he was healthy, and in this their play-in round, he looked phenomenal. Like he stole that series for them. But at the same time, I just think the Avs have too much offensive firepower, and the Coyotes don't have enough defense to be able to kind of keep them at bay for too long. Like Kemper's not going to stop McKinnon and Rance and Landeskog the entire series. So
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely. I mean, I was telling this to Marshall when we were watching the game. It's like I told him I wouldn't mind having the Coyotes over the alternative, and I think that's just based on their defense really isn't that strong other than Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I just think the Avs are going to fly past these guys. They got a little bit of speed on the front end, but other than that, they are. This is one of the teams that I wanted to play personally. I'm not too worried about Darcy Kemper. I know he is a stellar goaltender, and he could have been without injury Vezina Trophy finalists.
yeah, he was definitely my Vesna guy before all the injuries happened. I will say this though, I don't love Coyotes. Their high end. I think Chicago blows them out of the water with their high end,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with Kaner and Tays, and you don't know like DeBrincat what he could bring like on a nightly basis. We've seen Schmaltz in his first playoff game put up 5 points. So or not Schmaltz,
Kubalik, yeah.
Kubalik. Sorry, I was just
Mm-hmm.
looking at the Coyotes roster here.
Yeah, and Kirby Doc looked good too.
But Kubalik, yeah, he did, and like we've been saying this time and time again, it is kind of like a mini off season for these guys. It was so. I mean, you don't know what Kirby Doc entering his like year and a half, I guess, or second year, quote unquote, sort of type of deal. Um, so I don't necessarily think that the Coyotes' offense stacks up, even with the other teams that we could have played. The X factor for me is Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, and Darcy Kemper to me is the reason that I didn't want to play the Coyotes. The Predators were putting up 40, 50 shot games and just could not beat the guy. And when you're getting outplayed and winning, you're a scary team to play to me. And eventually, maybe those floodgates open. Maybe we crack that wall early on and we kind of just start piling in the goals. But there's a realistic chance that Darcy Kemper steals a game or two and pushes this series to 6 or 7 when it could have been a 4 or 5. I don't think that the skater depth in Arizona comes close to what we have in Colorado. I will say, I wanted to bring this up. Is this maybe good for us because maybe we get to give Taylor Hall just a first-hand look at, this is why you should come to Colorado. Just flip the sides next year, when you're an unrestricted free agent. Show them what it looks like.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I haven't even thought about that little aspect, but that is a good point that you bring up. I mean, in terms of like dynamic playmakers on their team, it really is limited to Taylor Hall, in my opinion, Clayton Keller. I think Kessel's kind of aging a little bit. Schmaltz has a decent year, and I mean, Oliver Ekman-Larsson kind of had a down year on the defensive end, especially after like he signed a pretty massive contract when everyone thought that he was going to go somewhere else. Um, so yeah, like if and the style of play that Taylor Hall brings would fit perfectly with the Avs. So maybe he's like, oh yeah, I could skate with these guys. It would be fun to skate with McKinnon or McCarr, on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
But all that's going to be thrown out the window if the Avs get knocked off. So
Yeah. Yeah, that would yeah, if Taylor Hall beats the Avs with the Coyotes, I have a hard time saying, you know what? I think I want to go play for the Avs, who we just beat. So,
yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
definitely think that he's a guy that would look to win. But I really, I really want him in Colorado. I don't know whether or not that happens. A couple other things on this Coyotes team. Looking at the roster, there's more young talent than I realized. I kind of thought of them as kind
Mhm.
of like you think of them and you think Kessel and Goligoski and Ekman Larson, more veteran guys. But then I started like just looking down the roster. They got Chikrin, Dvorak, Garland, Clayton Keller, a lot of younger talent that I like quite a bit, and I think that maybe this team slightly underrated in that regard.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Connor Garland has one of the best contracts in the entire league, especially if you're looking at his underlying numbers. He's an absolute just analytics darling.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, you don't really know what Barrett Hayton can bring to the table yet. He only had a 20-game stint with him this year, but who knows with this short, like this little off season, if he can kind of step it up a little bit. But yeah, they do have some exciting young players, but no one that's like truly elite like McKinnon. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say they're all like they don't have that true first line grinder kind of prospect in the system right now. Or first line like superstar prospect. They've got a lot of middle six guys, like just guys
mhm.
who could be very, very good in their middle six. So that is one thing that they kind of need to build on, and Taylor Hall was a big part of solving that problem for this year. But moving forward, I think that's one thing that they'd absolutely be looking for is that true game-changing talent. I just
Mhm.
don't think they quite have that yet, but they do have it right now in
Yeah.
Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel. Another X factor that I kind of want to talk a little bit about.
Right.
14 goals in 70 games did
Yeah.
not have a good year for them, not what they were hoping for when they brought him in. But like we've been saying, new year, not technically a new year, but it's a new year. A guy historically knows how to put the puck in the net.
Especially in the
Yeah. Do
playoffs.
you
Mm-hmm.
how much, if at all, does Phil Kessel scare you? Do you think that go
So
ahead, Zach.
he doesn't necessarily scare me, but I know in the Nashville series he had 4 points in 4 games. May it be 1 goal, 3 assists, but this, like Marshall said, this is a guy that can put the puck in the net, and he doesn't really need to skate very much to do it. He has an absolute ripper. Um, if you find Phil Kessel open, he's putting the puck in the net, almost guaranteed. He's definitely one of the X factors for me if Coyotes want to win. Him, Keller, and Kimper are my 3 X factors for the Coyotes there. But yeah.
Um, I don't know. He doesn't really scare me too much. Like I kind of already said, he's a little bit on the downswing in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One number that really dramatically jumps out to me right away with Phil Kessel is he was minus
Yeah.
21, head and away the worst plus minus on his team. No one else even had 10 or minus 10, and he was minus 21. That's not necessarily someone you're looking for, or the number you're looking for out of a big time trade that they were expecting Kessel to come in and be kind of their front runner scorer. I mean, Carl Soderberg had more goals than Phil Kessel this season and he was +6. So, uh, I mean, he doesn't really scare me too much, to be honest.
Yeah, not a good series or not a good season clearly, but definitely a guy that can put the puck in the net. And I think we can agree on
Yeah.
that. This is not a
Well,
guy
yeah,
you
we've
want to take
seen it
lightly.
before.
Yeah.
No, we've seen it before. Like if you look back at the Penguins back-to-back championships, Stanley Cup runs,
Mm-hmm.
Phil Kessel was right up there. Could have been easily the Conn Smythe winner, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the second season. He was right up there in scoring wise with both Crosby and Malkin. So definitely not a guy that you want to take lightly, but he doesn't necessarily scare me like too much.
That's fair
Uh,
enough.
Someone that like Taylor Hall is pretty much the only person on this team, like skater on this team that does truly scare me because we've seen what he can do when he absolutely turns it on. But really, the X factor for me, guys, is Darcy Kemper. I'm going to hit it over and over again, but he had an absolutely stellar season, and before he went down, Arizona was comfortably in a playoff position.
Yeah, and okay, so while we're kind of on that goalie tangent, Darcy Kemper, very, very good. 928 save percentage this year, 222, so 2.22 goals against average. Very, very good. A little bit underrated. Maybe Darcy Kemper goes down. Even then, they're looking really good because Antti Ranta, another,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he was an elite goalie this year. 921 save percentage, 263 goals against average. Maybe, I know, Marshall, you've talked a lot about it when we've talked a little bit about Dallas, about how Bishop and Kudobin might be one of the better pairings. This, to me, might be my pick as the best tandem. I think Ranta might be the best backup goalie in the league. He just if he, even Kemper Vesna candidate at his best, didn't play the full season, so he didn't get there. But Ranta borderline Vesna candidate on his own when he was playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really know if they're quite up there with Dallas's goaltenders, but you do make a really good point, Billy, that this is a really nice 1-2 punch. The thing is, though, um, I don't necessarily hate the Avalanche's 1-2 punch with Grubauer and
Yeah,
Francouz. We saw them play decently well in their little round robin games. I would make a little bit of the argument that Francouz played better, but I don't think you really can pin last game's Golden Knights on him. If you look at the goals, he was kind of let out to dry. I mean, especially like on a penalty shot, and the first goal was just an insane tip, and then just scramble plays all over the place. Um, I think the goaltending matchup is going to be a key aspect. And with the quality of shots that Arizona is going to be bringing to the table against Grubauer and Francouz, Grubauer and or Francouz, I think Grubauer is going to get the start. We'll probably get into that, but I would take Grubauer's chances over the just in terms of the quality of chances that he's going to be seeing as opposed to Kemper and the quality of chances that he's going to be seeing facing the
yeah.
Avalanche.
Interesting that both of these teams are do have the tandems going because this year in particular, I think that's more relevant than ever. You do have that doubleheader, that back to back game mixed into these series. And I would say definitely for the Avalanche and probably for the Coyotes as well, we will see both goalies at least once because of that little back to back. Do you Are you guys on the
Yeah,
same page? Do you agree with that, or do you think they roll Kemper for every game?
I guess it depends if he finds a hot hand or not, but I could see them
yeah.
definitely playing both goalies for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's kind of what I was going to say. Like, if you absolutely see Kemper steal a couple of games and he's just playing absolutely phenomenal, I don't think there's a way that they switch to Ranta.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah, that makes sense. That'd be game
or,
three. So if they're down 0-2 in the series, then you probably do switch to Ranta. If you're up 2-0, then you
Yeah.
probably just roll with Kemper.
yeah. I think it's kind of just based on the situation. Yeah. But I think the situation for the Avs is a little bit different, though. I think Bednar kind of does want to see what both goalies kind of can bring to the table, especially if he's not necessarily loving what Grubauer has been showing the first couple of games. I think it's a lot easier for Bednar to pull the plug on Grubauer than it is for the Yotes to pull the plug on Kemper. I think.
Definitely. I agree with that
Hmm.
completely. So, Marshall, you touched on it a little bit, but the other thing I did want to talk a bit about is who does get the nod for the Avalanche. And to me, it's Grubauer. It's neither goalie is proven, but Grubauer is more proven. Frankie
Mhm.
also plays very well when he's playing, but you always have that fear in the back of your mind when you have a goalie that struggles with that rebound control. And that to
Mhm.
me is that's what limits his ceiling to me. And the only goalie we've ever really seen make that work is Jonathan Quick, and it's I, maybe Frankie does get it done, but when you're in the playoffs like this, you're gonna go as safe as you can, and I think Grubauer does get the nod. Again, short leash, but at least game one, Grubauer, in my opinion, is the easy starter. What do you think about that, Zach?
Yeah, to me, Grubauer is definitely the starter. Marshall said it. It's you know it'd be easier for Bednar to pull the plug on Grubauer. And I don't think he's not a bad backup by any means. And when we say short leash, I kind of think we're talking about goals here. We're not really talking about games. Yeah. So it's a really short leash, in my opinion, for Grubauer. If he lets in a couple bad ones, see you, buddy. Frankie's in the next one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. One thing, Billy, that you just touched on is Frankie. Yeah, he does have a little bit of a problem, like controlling some of his rebounds, but I do think that like he might be one of the better like second, third save goalies in the league, at least right now. Kind of like we've seen with Jonathan Quick, like you already mentioned. I think Frankie is a little bit of like a Jonathan Quick light, not necessarily huge, but I think like after he lets off that first rebound, he does a pretty solid job at coming back and recovering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we've seen it all year, just like these scramble plays that puck should be in the net. Frankie has found a way to like keep them out of the net somehow.
Definitely, it's good for making that highlight reel save. You know, like yeah, he is very good at those scramble bounces off his pad and get that blocker up or whatever. And I think that is absolutely necessary for him because when you don't have that rebound control, you better be very, very good at making the second save. And Frankie he is very good at that. I'm not 100% sold on him as a legitimate NHL starter today, but I think that he might be. I think it'll be interesting to watch over the next really season or so to see how this battle develops. Do the Avs end up going with Grubauer? Do they end up going with Frankie as their kind of long-term, at least medium term until Annunen gets here if he is that starter? But if whoever loses that battle, do they find a starting job somewhere else around the league? It's definitely one of the more interesting situations to watch just because both goalies have shown starter potential but not necessarily proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that they are NHL starters.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point that Grubauer is a little bit more proven to this point. And I do think that's why he gets the nod. I mean, the year that the Capitals won the Stanley Cup, a lot of people forget that Grubauer was their starter all season long over Holtby, and then Torts pulled him really early in the Columbus series that when they were down to nothing, and then gave Holtby the start, and then Holtby kind of led them to the Stanley Cup there. But Grubauer has been there, has been a starter on some highly successful teams, as we've seen with the Avalanche, but he's not that true, like he's going to be the starter in the league for the next 10 years type of guy, you know? And Frankie, obviously, one season's been great, but I don't necessarily know if he's proven enough to even get a starting job at another team yet either.
Yeah, I would say he's not quite there yet. If we gave up a goaltender, Gruby would find a starting job and Frankie wouldn't, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean Frankie, like, a team would have to take a chance on Frankie to make him their number one. Yeah. And we've seen how that can work. I mean, back in the day, I thought Calvin Pickard could be a number one, and we see what happens. So, it's hard with goaltenders for sure, and that's why you got to give it to Grubauer just because he's more proven at this point.
Absolutely. So we've been on the goalies for a little while. I want to move a little bit more into the rest of the Avs roster, and there's really the one roster question. Is it Jost or is it Nieto? I don't know at this point. You know, I thought before we got into the bubble, I was fairly confident that it would be Nieto. We've gotten to see a little bit of both of them. Jost maybe didn't have his greatest game one. Nieto took over in the next game and played, I mean, as you would expect Nieto to do.
Well.
It's not, yeah, he played well. He didn't blow anyone away. He played well for a fourth line forward. I think that Jost has the higher ceiling.
To me, I would agree with that totally. But to me right now, I think Nieto gives us the best chance to win.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I feel bad because Jost has been there and he's done that, and he's trying his best out there, and he's done everything the coach has asked of him. He's just it's just hard to say that he needs another year, or I really don't know what he needs. But Nieto's just quicker to the puck. He makes better decisions. And
He's
go ahead,
Nieto.
Butch.
Nieto, in my opinion, is a better fourth line player than Tyson Jost is.
I agree with
I
that.
think Nieto is a prototypical fourth line player, where Jost, it's like he doesn't really thrive on the fourth line because that's not his style of play.
Mm-hmm.
Jost, with like we talk about his upside, I do agree that he has higher upside, but the way that Jost can thrive is if he's playing with better players.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Nieto can create his own type of chances and disruptions like on the fourth line. And Billy, I remember in the second game when we were watching it against Dallas, the fourth line really was kind of like
Generating
my
possession.
favorite, generating a
Mm-hmm.
lot of possession, getting pucks in deep, and really like helping all the other boys kind of just start their cycles and get
Mm-hmm.
down like offensive zone possession. So I definitely did not see that with Tyson Jost on the fourth line. So I would definitely start rolling with roll with Nieto right now, especially if the fourth line is continuing to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say if we may, it's hard even then. I would say maybe if we need more goal scoring, you call upon Jost, even though Jost doesn't score very much. I'm sure he's better at putting the puck in the net than Nieto is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
So,
Yeah,
on the same page as you guys. I do think we have to go with Nieto, and it's hard for me because I do love Tyson Jost.
mm-hmm.
It's
Me
just that
too. Me
this is
too.
not a good fit for him. Nieto with Calvert and Belmar all year have shown that they work very well together and
Yes.
they play their role very well. And you throw in Jost in the mix, and it just doesn't quite work. I will say I would love to see him on the third line. It's just there's no one on the third line that we can take off to put him in there. So maybe
no.
an injury comes in and Jost will get his shot. He's not going to sit the next 20 games if that's how, however deep we run. He's going to get a game or two in, but I mean your standard lineup, it has to be Nieto. It's the better fit. And I really do Jost is a guy that I think leaves Colorado in the offseason via trade. And I really do hope that he finds success somewhere else. I still think he does have the potential to
Mm-hmm.
be a 15, 20 goal guy, 35, 40 point skater somewhere. It's not in Colorado.
I
Mm,
would totally agree with that. And to me, the role that he would need to play in Colorado is that John Mitchell role. If you guys can remember back to John Mitchell, that's exactly what we need Tyson to be, and he's just not that right now. Um, like I said, Nieto just gives us a better chance to win.
I mean, I would almost argue that the role that we need Jost to play is a Valerie Nichushkin type. But then with the emergence of Valerie Nichushkin,
Right, and he's just too small to play that type of role.
I mean, if you do look at Jost's underlying numbers, he's pretty solid, especially in his own zone.
Mm-hmm.
But
Totally agree.
he's just not very good at driving play or like getting high danger chances.
Mm-hmm. And Marshall, you say this all the time. Jost just does not have the speed to burn people. He
No, he does
doesn't.
not.
The speed or
And
the strength.
Nieto, while he is just, it's hard to say even that, but Nieto, he can.
Nieto's quick.
Maybe it's just experience. Maybe it's just
Nieto is quick.
experience in the league. Nieto can get past people while Jost can't.
I mean, Nieto is a lot
Yeah.
faster than Jost, in
I
my
mean,
opinion.
Nieto,
I
a top
think
five
in most
skater on the
people's
team.
opinion. Yeah, I mean, dude, but that's like kind of his one
Yeah.
trick pony. Whereas I think Jost kind of does possess a little bit more tricks than Nieto. But I mean, especially like with the style of play that the Avs are showing right now, and that Bednar wants them to play, skating is very, very important. I just don't think that Jost really possesses that type of that skating that is gonna really like earn him roster spots like now or in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see another one that I really want to see how the whole Joe situation progresses in the future. I do think that this guy has a career in front of him somewhere. But let's move
Oh
into the
yeah.
top half of the roster because we've been playing around a little bit, and I do think we roll with that Landeskog Kadri line on the second line moving forward in the playoffs. And I think that it has been great for us. I think that it has kind of changed the landscape of our top six. Whereas before it was you're rolling out the three-headed monster, and then right after that it's kind of three-headed monster light with the Kadri, Burakovsky, whoever else you want to move in, where they play similarly. But then just not quite as well. And now it's like, all right, we're rolling out
Mm-hmm.
all our offense, and then we're going to grind you down with our second line. And I think it's been harder for teams to play against. I think it's been working really well. The one thing I will say about it is it lends itself to a little bit of speculation with Burakovsky. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a scenario here. Do you give any thought to rolling out Nemesnikov with the top line with with McKinnon and Rantanen like he has been playing a little bit, and I think he's been playing well there. Then putting Nichushkin with Kadri and Landeskog and actually even bumping Burakovsky to kind of that role as the goal scorer on your third line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bill, you said it. That second line is out there to grind you down and make way for this third line, who has unbelievable scoring potential. The Burakovsky, Confer, and Donskoy, all players that can just absolutely put the puck in the net at any time. And to me, this is a great decision by Bednar to have three not only grindy players in Donskoy and Confer, but Burakovsky as a goal scorer on that line. On that third line is big. So I think that's really, really good. And then just to roll out the fourth line after that, just to grind it up, it's gonna be crazy. I think this is an absolutely deep lineup for sure.
I like that idea just because it turns your third line I don't see it as a demotion for Burakovsky, which I think as a player it might be hard not to take it that way. But it turns your third line from another grindy line to a legitimate threat.
Yes, yeah. I see it as your third line is now a scoring threat. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like you might get a demotion in ice time, but the Arizona's third line is not going to be able to contain these guys over a 7-game series. It's just not going to happen.
I think what Bednar's trying to do here is he's trying to position all of his forwards for like a strictly playoff lineup. I think a playoff lineup and a regular season lineup are pretty different from each other. Like in the regular season, going into next season, I do think that Landeskog moves back up with McKinnon and Rantanen just because the style of play is a little bit different. But then if you can roll out a first line with Nemesnikov, McKinnon, and Rantanen, a true elite first line, especially if Nemesnikov starts to gel with those other two guys. The second line we've already talked about, who not only are a true grindy line and a shutdown line, but it can also put the puck in the net with Kadri and Landeskog, and then Nichushkin to do his thing, driving some play and doing his defensive style of game. But then also, like, the third line, like we said, like, that's a very grindy line in itself. And then that third line is rivaled with any other team's third line, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bednar is trying to spread the wealth as much as he can right now and give Nemesnikov a shot to show what he can do, especially with, like he was our pretty much key off-season acquisition. And if Nemesnikov can prove to play really well in that first line, then it just absolutely changes the Avs landscape.
And I think he does end up proving himself on that first line. If you guys remember earlier in the season, we tried Donskoy on the first line just because of his speed. And I think Nemesnikov has a little bit more puck touch and maybe not as much speed as Donskoy, but he can keep up with the boys, and that's all you're asking for on that first line.
One of the things that made the three-headed monster so good when they played together was Landeskog's ability to put that dirty goal in, right around the net. And I think that is the key thing that Nemesnikov brings, is that he will do the grinding on that line. McKinnon and Rantanen, superstar players, and they're willing to go to the corners, but they're not there to go to the corners. And that's a little bit of what Landeskog brought.
Right.
And I think that's why Nemesnikov is such a good fit on that line, is because he brings a little bit of that same element.
That's a fantastic point for sure. He definitely does.
I mean, yeah, one of the key things that I was reading on Nemesnikov is that he's a fantastic penalty killer. And that kind of, if you're a fantastic penalty killer, you already know that guy is going to be willing to go into the corners, like do some dirty work and feed the rest of the boys. So, yeah, that's a really good point. But I need to see it work first. I don't necessarily love what's going on in the first line yet. I think Rantanen did start to pick it up in the third game. McKinnon did get a goal. But it's not it's not what we've seen from the first line like in the past. This absolute every single time that they step on the ice, you know that there's going to be a legitimate scoring chance, if not two or three.
I mean, I think
I would
Rantanen in the
totally
third
agree.
game was very, very good. I mean, he couldn't
Yeah,
quite get it
that's what
done.
I'm saying.
And like you said, they haven't gotten the
Rantanen
points.
had a very quiet 4 points.
Yeah.
Rantanen has 4 in 3 games. That's
Yeah,
very
I didn't even
quiet.
realize that. Yeah. And I think game 1,
Yeah.
Rantanen wasn't great. I think game 2, he was good.
Agreed.
And I think game 3, he was very good. And it just didn't quite show up because he doesn't have a goal. And that's kind of the thing he's missing. The
Right.
three-headed monster hasn't popped off yet. Really, it's McKinnon and Rantanen that I'm looking at that have not popped off yet. And I think that game is coming. I'm hoping it comes against Arizona. That would be really nice. But they have looked very good. And I kind of have to disagree with you here a little bit, Marshall. Watching that Vegas game, they looked every time they were on the ice, they looked like they were dominating and they looked like they could put the puck in the net. All right. Let me pop into OBS.
It looks like okay. I think it's back. I think
All
we're still
right. Do
live.
I sound okay now?
Yeah, I think we're still
Yeah, now you sound like you did before.
sound a little bit robotish
Okay,
still.
so we should be back live now. We had a little bit of an issue. If anyone in the chat wants to let us know where we dropped you, go ahead and do that. But we were talking really just about the Colorado Vegas game, and absolutely these are the two best teams in the West. I don't think that there's any question. I think that when we get to the conference final, we're going to see even better hockey. I don't think that we saw like the two teams firing on all cylinders.
Well, I definitely
Yeah,
that.
totally.
But still, like
But these,
in terms of the competition that we've seen in these round robin games, that was the best game of hockey that I've seen.
yeah, I would agree with that, and I think it was pretty close to. I mean, to me, that was the Vegas game was pretty close to a super intense regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's not fire, to me that is firing on all cylinders. I think these are, while you're knocking off a little bit of rust still, I think these two teams were giving it their all, and it was a great game to watch. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think the hockey still though continues to get better as we go round by round.
I think that's because they're knocking rust off. I don't think it's because players are taking shifts off.
Oh,
or
I mean,
anything
that's
like
not
that.
what I'm saying at
I
all.
think
I'm just saying they're not in
right.
peak form. They're not in
Okay.
peak. I mean, even if you're
fair
going
enough.
100%, sometimes you just have more drive like you do in the playoffs. So I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I would agree with that
so,
too.
let's we're kind of towards the end here. Another thing that I want to talk about, I guess not talk about it, I just want to get some predictions here. So, who wins the series, how many games, and high scoring, low scoring series, just kind of general feel of the series. Let's start with you, Zach. How do you think it plays out?
So clearly, I think the Avalanche end up winning the series. Like you guys said, I'm not really too scared about Darcy Kemper. I think he could maybe steal a game or two, in which case it probably goes 5 or 6. And just to be safe, I'll go Avs in 6. Well, it may be a hot kind of grindy series. Yeah, the Avs are definitely going to take this over just on their scoring depth alone. We just have way more scoring depth than Arizona, and it will show over a 7-game series.
Absolutely. So yeah, Zach, I'm actually going Avs in 6 as well. I do think that Darcy Kemper can steal a game or two, and just like maybe the boys aren't on for a game or whatever. But I'm going Avs in 6. I do think the Avs, in terms of possession and like high scoring chances and shots, I think the Avs are going to absolutely blow Arizona out of the water in that type of aspect. It's just a matter of getting the pucks past Darcy Kemper, which there's definitely going to be a game or two, which it's going to be kind of hard to find. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me, Billy. I think the games that Arizona could potentially win, I think, is going to be pretty low scoring. But I do see a couple of really high scoring games from the Avs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I don't want to say 6, so we all three say 6, but I think it's going to be 6. I think Darcy Kemper steals one. I think the Avs drop one that maybe they shouldn't, as tends to happen in a series this long. It's what makes the sweep so hard. But I think the Avs take it in 6, and I think, like you said, I think the 2 Arizona win, I think those will be 2-1, 1-0 games. I think the Avs maybe grind out a close game, but I also think the Avs win a couple 5-2, 5-3 kind of games. So I think it'll be a good mix of some high-scoring hockey and some really good defensive showcase type of games.
I totally agree, Billy. And based on Avalanche's defense and what we got going, I really don't see Arizona scoring more than 4 goals in any game.
Yeah.
So if they want to win, it's going to have to be a low-scoring, grindy affair for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty fun series to watch. A little bit of a clash of different styles of team hockey. Unfortunately, most of these games are in the afternoon.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Like, what the heck is going on there?
Real difficult for
It's probably because they're all in the
watch.
same place.
I mean, I gave Marshall my theory, and I think that it's a solid theory. Colorado fans can't watch these games by legal means. Most of us, you can go to a bar. Some people have DirecTV, but Comcast, the biggest provider in the area, cannot watch. Arizona already one of the smallest markets, so regardless of the quality of teams and quality of hockey, this will probably be the least watched series. So it makes a lot of sense to put it at 2 in the afternoon or right around noon, where you've got the smallest viewership. So it sucks as Avs fans. Like, at least for us in particular, it's going to be, we will try to live stream one of these games, but I don't know if we're going to be able to make it happen.
I doubt it.
Just because it's times of the day where people are working, and I think that's why, and I think it sucks, but it's how it happens sometimes.
But I don't know, man. I feel like on a nationwide perspective, a lot of people do want to watch the Avalanche.
Yeah, but the biggest chunk of viewership is still going to be the home crowd. So I mean, I agree, but if you're already just taking away the home area fans, it's a big chunk. It's a big hit that those games would take anyway. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating. But luckily, round 2, everything will be broadcast nationally. There won't be local blackouts. So after this round, I don't think it's an issue we'll have to deal with again. So we do have that to look forward to.
Yeah, that's just a bit of a bummer. Like, I was able to watch more games in the round robin, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch any of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt I will be able to either. So in that sense, it is unfortunate, but it's all right.
Yeah, we'll be able to.
The Avs should win this series in the long run.
Be able to watch them a little bit after, get all the highlights, all that. For me, it's actually a perfect scenario. I'm a DoorDash driver, which means I work lunchtime and I work dinner time, and all the games fall in the gap right in between. So I love it, but no one else does. But I mean, that's all we've really got today. Do you guys have anything that you guys want to talk about before we go ahead and get out of here?
Really?
Not much.
Well, really
Marshall?
quick, I do not necessarily hate our second seed because, especially with Dallas winning yesterday, it would mean that we would not have to play St. Louis
as long as Dallas does their job and beats Calgary, which I do think that series could go either way, but I would lean towards Dallas. Dallas is my pick. But yeah, I mean, the advantage to the 1 seed was supposed to be that you get Dallas instead of St. Louis in the second round. But Dallas beating St. Louis flipped that. And now if everything goes according to plan, which I actually do think it will in the West. I don't think we're going to see an upset in the West. I think we will in the East. But that would mean that the Avs will get the Stars rather than the Blues in the second round, which could be massive.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my last thing I wanted to hit on. I'm just excited. We haven't necessarily even seen like a super dominant McKinnon yet. Like, he's looked good, but not like absolutely amazing yet. And I do think that's coming.
I do too.
Yeah, I would agree. He's knocking off the rust. And he didn't even look bad in these first 3 games.
I think he looked good. He looked good, but not like the absolute hungry ass McKinnon that we've seen.
Yeah, just wait till he finds the shot. He's going to be absolutely sniping goaltenders. It's going to be
I
great.
agree.
That's going to be fun.
I cannot wait. McKinnon for Conn Smythe. All right. So thank you to
Yeah,
all our viewers
that's
or
good.
listeners or whatever you're doing. You know, we're all over the place now. If I know we've still got a couple people still in the live stream, so if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, click subscribe. Check us out wherever you listen to your podcast, you know, iTunes, Google Play, or on YouTube. That's where we're live streaming this. And we'll go ahead and see you in our next episode.